Salibonani Bulawayo, Linjani. Today we're going to talk about men's mental health. Inside CITE network, I introduced a campaign on grooms not raised. With me here, I've got my panelists. I was a snake so
Salibonani Linjani lonke, mina ngingu-Babs, the emotional alchemist. I'm an eclectic psychotherapist.
Salwanani, mina igama lami nguSwandlani Nyamezela Dube, Sox the poet. I am an ecosystems developer focusing mainly on the creative sector and entrepreneurship. Plus, I do mental health awareness.
Okay.
Hi everyone, my name is Yenry, a former nurse student, recently finished my studies. I'm an upcoming software engineer. I also write blogs and podcasts on men's mental health and anything creative.
Hey, excuse. All right, okay. So I'm just going to go indaba esiphethe kakhulu lapha njengoba baba, not to offend you madam. Njengoba namhlanje, njani impilo le sinzima kakhulu for thina baba. So today we want to talk about that since month level ngiyetha amadoda. So sizasincedisa kakhulu endabeni le samuyihlaziya sizisithi uhamba kanjani. So I've got questions today I'm going to ask you so that you educate each other indaba le sincedisane. Sikhuliswe baba laba abancane as a youth. Right now I go that uptight. So I've got my questions here I'm going to ask you. Then they'll help us disiphendulane kahle kahle sisisane sixoxe ngayo indaba le. So I've got the first question here ngizabuza uSister Barbara njani nguye wengqondo ongasiza sicabange kahle. Barbara, this one is a bit tough but I know you can handle it and nothing you can handle. So how can we begin to redefine traditional notions of masculinity in Zimbabwe to make space for vulnerability, emotional expression, and healing?
Ngiyabonga for umbuzo wakho. First of all, it's important for us to acknowledge ukuthi so far we've been operating in a maybe say toxic masculinity setup. Okay. If we are redefining it, it means there's something that we are not desiring from the old definition. So when we are redefining masculinity, we are getting away with notions like okwabo indoda must. You know, there's so much wrong with that statement. And it puts so much pressure on the boy child, on the male. Uguti kumela reach certain standards. You know, but umuntu indoda laye ule mizwa ulama feelings ulama emotions, so kungakhali what are we saying about that?
Yeah.
And also ukuthi indoda must always provide. Mina ngihlezi impela my expectations or ukuthi things that I cannot provide for myself, I expect you to provide for me.
So that's what the society expects from men most of the times. Uthi baba vele ngiyimela aphume laphana athuzuka limali ukuze ifamily be right.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey.
And also even ukuthi umuntu oyindoda akumelanga, you know, like telling a 3-year-old ukuthi be a man. How does a 3-year-old baby become a man?
Eish.
What does that even mean? We even discriminate abantwana, we give them different toys ukuthi umntwana ongumfana if he's playing with a doll ahlatshayo kumbakatsi ukuthi udlalisela nodoli kumele abe edlalisa ngikwazi kumbe udlalisa izimota or I don't know whatever else boys are supposed to play with.
Echansi ngusisibhuti nxa sibamba odoli ebadlalisa. Yakho la.
But umntwana ngumntwana. Yeah. The only difference between a boy child and a girl child is their genitalia. Ukuthi that's where the difference is. But bonke nxa bengabantwana they are just the same. And they deserve to operate or play with the same toys. Ngoba, to be honest with you, we all are dual as human beings. We all have a masculinity in us, we all have a femininity in us. But for the boy child, it's usually squashed. Ngoba, you are not supposed to be in touch with your feelings. There is no vocabulary to empower the boy child ukuthi akwanise ukuzi-expressa when they are feeling some type of way, when they are hurt. Instead umntwana engabuye ekhale sithuchayiwe usebuza ukuthi wena couldn't you beat them back up, you know, se promote bullying le violence ebantwaneni abangabafana. but nxa kuyinkazana we want to intervene.
Sim protect.
Yes.
Yeah, are balanced in some way. They are protecting the girl child more than the boy child.
So we need to change the narrative now, protect both the boy child and the girl child.
Yeah, hey, our sister Papluza Nazela. Okay, but socks, what's your take on this one? In terms of ecosystem, see balance, yeah.
So my understanding, maybe built on what Pops has been saying, I think like what's important really in terms of redefining our traditional norms is understanding that tradition is socialized, right? And it's socialized through our agents of socialization. She talked mainly of a family, right? Within the family setup, then also go to the church setup where the church actually emphasizes a lot of toxic masculinity, and everything that is founded. We die because our faith tells us as men we must die. Right. You also go to the media, we've watched Titanic, Amajidesiva, and all that, right? That is the norm that we've been given. As a man, you're supposed to die, right? You go even when you talk about even how we socialize in society as a whole, the communities, where we talk about even issues of provision. You talk also about, right? Nonchalantization. Yeah, everything that's happening to say be numb, be distant, be aloof in everything that you do as a man. That is what a man is. But even in a community, if you're a man, you talk a lot, you express yourself. Because our society has been wired wrong. So in order for us to be able to change our norms, it comes from the realization, like she said, and understanding which there is something wrong. So after understanding there is something wrong, what can we then do right? What do we change? And it starts from a young age, re-socialize, Lichinji model, to say a child is a child. Forget about the genitalia, right? And then you also go to a point of saying there are principles, there are values. Happiness is something that everybody ought to achieve. Healing is something that needs to be universal. So rewiring society is not it's also not a one-day thing. It's a process, and the process yankona comes from the conscious realization ukuthi siphambanisile sonke, siyaphambanisa, sikhulisa kubo abantwana, such that one of the evils that you then find because of that is amankazana, let's say the girls, they are groomed, right? And you groom them, all right, to some extent. And you groom them. Obviously, there are also limitations in the grooming. But you groom them to be women, to be mothers, to be wives, right? Men are just thrown nje. Raised by wolves. It's up to you. Then you then come to a world where we have got women that know what love looks like, that know what, a health relationship looks like. And then we sort of figure boys that know everything toxic, and when they mix, it's still disaster. It's undoing all the work that has been done on one side. So all these things need to be looked at as a process, as a system, as a cycle. That is where my contribution is.
Yeah, put so Zena, so that is a put down. And the schools are,
personally, I think, yeah, as he has already said, it's socialized. Like these norms are socialized, right? But it's also a systemic issue. We have systems like education, even churches, they also like emphasize these kind of ideals, right? So if you look at work, even at school, you're told that, okay, if a girl wants to do medicine, they're okay with their 13 points. But a guy, he has to have 15 points. That's also another problem that I think, for me, is really, really big. I know that in terms of performance, boys and girls are different, but we have tried to cater for the girl child so much so that we have pushed the boy child away. And now we are seeing the effects of that. It's super negative. For me, that's my opinion, yeah.
So, I don't mean to be the villain. I didn't say inshallah. So, I heard him saying, a man, our fan is 15 points, you have to block. Are you trying to run away from the fact that a man has to be powerful in the game? We have to always target the best out of all the things that we do. So I'm not trying to disagree with you guys. I'm trying to put the fact that we shouldn't take away that dominance from the men. Okay. Because at the same time, that's I'm a provider as men. So how are we going to balance that equation? I don't know if you get me, Sister Pubs.
There's nothing wrong with being driven. but we need to balance izinto. Like he's saying, ukuthi, the pressure to get 15 points is higher on the boy child, but the girl child can relax. There may be other extenuating circumstances behind that, right? But we also need to consider, is the boy child holistically healthy? Ngoba ukuthi he is just alive, siyambona uyaphefumula and he can read, that's one thing. He may have other things that affect him. Let me give you an example. I once had I had a client who had lost their mother. And so when we were talking about the brother, she was talking about how the losses affected and everything. And so that's us considering the girl child has lost their mother. So she's now responsible for ABC. Which means gasela sikhathi esilingana lesi ka boy child to read, and but then are we considering what the boy child is going through? Ngoba remember, for every male child, your first love is your mother. For the girl child, your first love is your father. And so if the mother is no longer there, it means the source of love, the source of life, of everything for this boy child has been removed. So obviously he's going through a lot. Maybe even a whole lot more than the girl child. And we are not considering him and his feelings. We are saying, umfana anti ukumela qine indoda kakhali and whatnot. But he's experiencing a lot of trauma. Emotionally is not okay. So why can't we also extend the same courtesy ukuthi umntwana engabale 13 points, if they want to be a doctor, let them be a doctor. Is it a male child or a boy child? Yes, there are differences in how we live life, in how we experience life as males and females. But when it comes to emotional well-being, we are the same.
50-50.
Yes.
Equal
or 100-100. Why are we even making it 50-50? The other 50 up. It's 100-100. We experience emotions the same way.
Okay.
Maybe the only difference is the boy child gala ma safe spaces whereby they can talk and explore their feelings and emotions safely, maybe like the girl child. But they are also experiencing the trauma that the girl child is experiencing.
Okay. Yeah.
As well. I think also within that conversation, the issue is a lot of things, they also need a bit of context, right?
Okay.
As we are doing, like even between male and females and all that, like the whole 13 point and everything has its own reasons, right? But then what then happens is, the problem now is throwing men into a world with competition without setting the rules and telling them what exactly is life, how are you going to experience this. We've got a lot of men that are so well achieved, but for lack of a better word, they are they are like the worst people, human beings ever. Well achieved. Everything in life is set, but they are so broken, right? They are so abusive, but they did make it as a man. They are dominant, right? The way they posture a man, but this is a child who is just acting out. So because we focus on the end product and forget to address the process of achieving masculinity and what masculinity is, that's why you find which cases of domestic violence are high and perpetrators are men. It's not because men, they are inherently violent. It's because they are raised in a system that allows them and teaches them, if you're not going to deal with your emotions, some way, somehow, what goes in needs to go out. So those emotions will form and then it will burst out. Burst out, it always comes out. So that is the issue with this whole logo, like the way that you are raised, which now we need to note everything that begins ends. And the process is where we lack in how conversations, bottling things up, and there is no universal definition of what a man is, because people experience life differently. So it's not wrong to be strong, right? But what does strength then mean? Are we saying that because umay bongwe yisgora, then that's what a man is? Right. So if ingasosgora, should I then belittle myself and feel feminine and feel like I do not exist? If I then feel like that, that's where other doors open up, where I have self-resentment. That's where other things open up, which is self-esteem, and I then project, I do all these other funny things, so all that thing, it comes back full circle if we fail to really define it at the beginning.
Yeah, that's a strong one from you, my brother. Hey, lapho you preached, eh? But it's not been too, hey, it's been a season, guys. Take it easy, and pull it. Hey, good. Okay.
Just to add on to what you were saying, men are expected to provide, right? But within that word and the context of providing, there's also safety. Men are also expected to provide safety. But the question then becomes, what is safety to a man if he himself didn't experience it?
Okay.
See? So to them, all things that are happening, be it domestic violence or the bad stuff and the good stuff, to the man, he's doing the natural thing because of how he was brought up and how he experienced and how he was taught how to channel emotions. Right? Men are not taught how to channel emotions. They're not taught to, okay, you're gonna get hurt. It's okay to feel the pain. It's definitely okay. Right? There's nothing wrong with that. We should teach children it's okay to feel the pain. Don't try to make him like don't like allow this pain to get to you. No, man, the pain, this thing is hurting. I want to feel this thing. It's okay. But now we need to teach him, okay, now that you're feeling the pain, an emotion is gonna arise. How do you then channel that? You need to channel it in a safe and healthy way, such that you don't affect yourself and those around you. For me, that's my opinion.
Ecosystem.
Exactly.
Okay. I know. Thank you so much, sister.
First of all, I wanted to add on to what Osoks was saying. Nguti, intellectual intelligence does not translate to emotional intelligence.
Okay, yeah.
And also for us to say go too deep, we need to relax. I think that's where the problem is with our society. We are uncomfortable addressing the tough questions. We would rather stay in our, I don't know, do I want to say in our ignorance? Because now we know we can't still be ignorant. We want to pretend the problem is not there. And because it makes us uncomfortable. But if there's any change that needs to happen, we have to address the uncomfortable issues. We need to feel the uncomfortability. Now we are saying the male and the female, they feel the same way. They experience emotions the same way. We may have different thresholds of pain. I've seen people think if there is this simulation you attach attachments that you put on a man so that they experience like what it feels like to go through labor or period pain. We have different thresholds of pain. And as women, we are wired I can go through labor, and after giving birth, my body naturally forgets the pain that I was experiencing. That's why after a year, we are pregnant again, popping another baby, still going through the same pain. Next year again, I'm doing the same thing. But the pain is real, and but we have different ways of processing that pain. The pain that we feel as women is not the same pain because you don't have uteruses, you don't go through what we go through. So you cannot, now you're telling us, this is uncomfortable. It's almost like a man telling a woman, if I'm saying, I'm having pain, and you cannot withstand the period pain just for 1 hour. And as women, sometimes you go through it for an entire week, and you're still expected to show up and perform like everyone else. So we need to address those things and acknowledge our differences. But us saying this is now too deep, unless we address the deep stuff and we are comfortable with it, we become comfortable with it. Or it doesn't matter what platform I'm on, I can talk about these issues. We are not going to change anything. We'll still be bleeding our traumas onto the next generation, just like our parents bled their traumas onto us and their own parents bled onto them. So we have le ripple effect of ilokhu toxic masculinity, toxic perceptions of what we should be doing or how we should conduct ourselves as men and women, and toxicity towards accepting ukuthi even men have a feminine side. That's why you groom yourself, you take care of yourself. That is feminine. Yeah. That's femininity.
Now, shampoo.
Exactly. All that. That's you tapping into your feminine energy. Yeah. And me as a woman saying, I'm going to show up, I'm going to take care of myself, I'm going to do this. That's me tapping into my masculine energy.
Okay.
So we need to be comfortable with that and know what if we are going to change the narrative, if we are going to heal as a society, we need to talk about these things. Even if we feel uncomfortable, we sit through that discomfort and address it until one day it becomes so normal to us, so it doesn't feel uncomfortable.
That's lovely. Hey, yeah, we make sister Paps, yeah, our panelists are coming slowly. Now we have to move on to the second question. Let's see. We have this one. How do you see masculinity being groomed into them, and what messages are they learning? What it means to be a real man? So the question here, how can you now define is this a man? How do we define a real man?
Yeah, I think, so, Mina, if I'm to take that question, I think being a man also comes from being, like, it's a subjective conversation. You need, like, being a man, the minute you try to compare with another person, so that is what a man looks like. You can have role models, yes, they can teach you certain elements that are really like healthy and everything else, right? Yeah. They are, yes, socially there are things that we agree on. There are roles that have been assigned. There is nothing wrong with roles. There is everything wrong with how we've been applying certain roles, right? There is nothing wrong with saying as a man, I want to be wearing all black and whatever like this. I'm conscious about my health, especially physical and exercise. That is being a man. Okay. But then at the same time, if you then decide, but still, like, being a man comes with being comfortable with who you are and in your role, and also knowing, sort of like existing within your, I don't want to say limits, but within your capabilities as well. Or which you can push, because again, what we've been talking about, emotions, we haven't been taught to handle emotions, right? There are some people that have learned resilience more, maybe because of the pain they experienced and so forth, right? Which again is another conversation on its own. Yeah. But being a man comes with knowing yourself, right? Being comfortable in who you are and being able to say, regardless of the external influences, I can still stand by my word, by the person that I am, that I have groomed. So for me, being a man has nothing to do with how you walk, has nothing to do with how you talk, has nothing to do with how you, even express yourself. For me, it has everything to do with who you are comfortable with that, and you are able to live a healthy life. Which if I'm providing, this is what I can provide. If I'm communicating, this is how I communicate healthily. If I am in pain, this is how I am able to address the pain. Because at the end of the day, if you forget these fundamentals, that's when we come back to redefining the conversation. So that's when you come back to the conversation. Where a lot of people often work on the external and forget the internal. Yeah. So external, I may look like a man, but internal, I'm a child or like a very hurt young girl. You see, so that's all those things are there. They exist. But as long as we keep on trying to define manhood, obviously there are the physical things, the biological side of manhood, right? But as long as we want to define what man is according to society based off what we see, we miss the conversation of what really rests inside. It's like even that whole parable of a dirty cup, a clean cup outside, dirty inside. That's where it all comes back to.
So you mean it comes from within?
For me, that's what being a man
who
is.
You are, you define yourself.
Okay. It's not about, what's the word? I know you know the word. And not the projection one. Yeah, seeking. It's not about external validation, right? It's about what internally and who internally you are, right? Because a lot of people, shy, all right, fashion things they come, trends, they come, they go, right? So there are times where being a man means, there were times where being a man means you needed to be able to kill.
Yeah.
Right.
Ngale about 10,000 pieces.
Yes.
Right.
Very recent.
Definitions of being a man, they change according to what society wants. There are times, there is the red pill argument again. They like right now, being a man means being toxic.
Like
Actively being toxic, knowing good, no woman is not going to talk to me like this and everything. Your posture, your everything. That is what. Are you going to follow that? Is that being a man to you? Does it make you happy?
No, I think it's toxic.
You see, so
at the end of the day,
so being a man needs to be an internal exercise, internal purpose.
Henry, what's your take from your perspective? You are my students. I'm hearing you don't understand this thing.
I think, as my brother here said, like, being a man has no absolute definition. It's something that you have to kind of like practice yourself. You're gonna choose values. You're gonna have role models. Then you're gonna choose values. Then you're gonna be like, okay, from what I have, this is the kind of man I wish to become. Okay, so these are my role models, and these are the values I've chosen. These are gonna act as like a guideline to what I want to become. But you are the one who has chosen the type of man you want to become, right? So for me, that's what being a man is all about: sticking true to that path which you yourself have chosen. Because if what makes you is outsourced, but we know that anything which is outsourced is always passing, it always changes, right? You will always feel like you're not enough. Funny enough, I was writing about this yesterday, for me, that's a big problem. Like, we've normalized seeking external validation, and as my brother here said, we work so much on the externals. I gotta have the latest iPhone, I gotta look buff, I gotta drive the latest car. But we have seen those people getting into relationships and they end. Why? Because they've totally missed the point. Now, I think for me, it's also important to understand that men and women are fundamentally different, biologically, psychologically. For those who believe in the spiritually, biologically, we have different hormones that detect how we behave and how our bodies behave. Men have testosterone, which gives them an affinity for certain things like risk. But that's not to be taken to the extreme of like, okay, you then have to use that in a very toxic way in order for us to prove that you're a man.
To prove dominance.
It's meant to help you achieve, which I think, for a lack of a better word, I'll call you divine purpose, for a lack of a better word, right? And women are more on the side of providing care and nurturing. For me, that's what I think. So we are teaching, like, I would say we're teaching men in general to be so out of touch with themselves by trying to objectively define what manhood looks like. So I don't think, for me, that's kind of a good idea to take. I think we should allow people to be self-reliant on their voice and the voice inside, which tells them, okay, this is the type of person we want to become. Then they decide for themselves whether or not that is truly their own opinion or what. For me, that's what I would say.
Okay, I think this one is really, it needs a lot of time for us to discuss. But what can you tell us, Sister Babs?
I think in agreement with Henry, what life is very spiritual. Whichever way you practice your spirituality. But as men, I want to encourage you to extend yourself the grace to grow and transform. Ngoba you are not stagnant ukuthi whatever you were told ukuthi umuntu oyindoda unje, then you stay like that. Allow yourself to evolve. And as you evolve, it's easier to influence others, your peers in the younger generation, in a positive way.
Okay. This is the Babs to allow yourself to evolve, my gents. Peace, my gents. Sister Socks.
Sister Socks.
Don't try Sister Babs.
So now my last remarks would be, just because culture, society, and tradition normalizes something doesn't mean it's sacrosanct, and you can't question it, right? So people need to grow the backbone and be able to backbone. That's where the backbone is needed. Question culture. Certain things are now obsolete, right? Certain definitions and everything, they are more harmful than what? Than they don't have much good to bring. So the importance of understanding masculinity and manhood is coming from a point of understanding, which is certain things, they expire. They are positive things that you can take from tradition, culture, and society, try to filter. And once you learn how to filter, you'll find that we'll have a generation of men that know how to be healthy men. Let's also put healthy in bold exclamation marks. Because you can be a man, but an unhealthy one.
So spike stamp on that, right?
Healthy.
Yeah, thank you, my brother. Henry?
For me, in closing, what I would say, what it means to be human, it means just to take responsibility for yourself. So that means if you feel deep within that, no, the current experience that I'm living, I'm not okay with this. You're allowed to change it. You do that by seeking knowledge which you think and believe is superior, you know. So I would advise particularly men to do that, since that's the topic of the day. Men to do that and try to seek positive sources which are contrary to what we grew up being told. That's what I would advise men. You will actually find a lot of interesting stuff there that you wouldn't know.
Okay, good people. Since I'm sure you all heard what they said. So since we are kickstarting our campaign on groomed not raised, I would like you to follow and share and also add what you think on men's mental health topic. Since we topic so can you share this on the site Youth Network platforms? Let's help each other to groom men and not raise them. Thank you so much.